I'm Diego Cordovez.
Adam Schoenfeld.
Welcome to The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. And we have a young man named Antonio Esfandiari, who's very well known, doesn't need a lot of introduction, and he's won 2 WPT events. He's won a bracelet in Pot Limit Hold'em at the World Series. He's a regular, it seems, on high stakes poker.
The magician.
He's a tremendous magician. He's very entertaining, and but he's a real poker player and has kind of that old school edge to him even, so it'll be fun. So you've just added to your triumphs by winning the Doyle Brunson 5-star WPT Super Classic, and my sources told me that it could not have been done without our boss Barry Shulman. Is that accurate?
Is it appropriate to thank him? Barry, thank you very much.
No, we don't want to give Barry a hard time, but the first day you trapped him, you doubled up, and in fact, I was telling you guys, Jeff called me and he said, Dad's already out. He doubled up Antonio, and I said Antonio's probably going to win the tournament now because having that many chips so early in a tournament is a huge advantage to a guy who knows what to do with them.
Yeah, it worked out well. I mean, sometimes I know what to do with them. I also know the opposite side of that spectrum as well. I'm good at getting the chips. They all call me the day one specialist, but I can't usually hold on to them. So this time I was like, I'm going to hold on to these chips. You
don't expect to double up that quickly, but like when you do in a tournament like that with a tough field, because this is
it was a tough tournament,
serious,
for sure.
Field. Does that alter your strategy right away? Do you start to?
I mean, no, you just want to try and play good, and when you have all the chips, you really want to try and kind of control the table a little bit, and everything just seemed to work out to my benefit. I mean, I was chip leader. I was top 5 chip leader after day 1, and then I was chip leader every single day until the final table, and so it worked out.
That's your second World Poker Tour title.
Yeah,
pretty impressive.
I haven't been to a World. Jack McClellan was commenting when we were at the final table, and he's like, "Oh, it's the magician. He hasn't been here in 7 years." I've been to a final table in 7 years for WPT. So the last final table was with you.
Yeah, I recall.
That was like 38 years ago.
I mean, that really does seem like
38 years ago. It feels like
that seems like a different era, and that we were different people.
Such a different era for sure. Poker was easy back then.
Yeah, it's still what that was the last year it was easy. I think
it was right around then it started getting tough.
That's right. You had it was in LA. You won your WPT, and you were relatively unknown back then. Since then you won a bracelet and this tournament. But I always think of you as being very steady, just kind of working through the tournament and gathering chips. There are some players who their whole strategy is based on, I'm going to gamble early, try and get a lot of chips and then run everybody over. That's what I was wondering, whether this was kind of a different experience for you as far as...
it kind of depends on what stage of the tournament, but if I get a lot of chips early on, I really don't want to gamble a lot because I want to just kind of try and chip up, But if I'm, average stack and we're like 4 or 5 levels in, I start to get a little antsy, and I don't mind gambling. How can they call? Right?
You
they never have it.
Right. You gambled, notably, the last time that I saw you on TV or that made an impression on me was in the main event of the World Series, the year that Joe Cotto won, 2009.
I took 24th.
You were 24th, down to 3 tables. Our friend Jeff made the final table, and that was a year.
Memories.
Well, I don't want to bring up the pain, but that was a year there were a lot of amateur players remaining, and I think the hand you went out on, you were up against one of them, or certainly a less experienced player, and you tried a big, powerful move on him.
Well, I actually, truly, honestly did think I had the best hand with 5s. It was 2-3-10.
Oh, okay.
And I bet he raised, and we had just played a pot together where I bet he wanted to raise the flop and he ended up folding. And the day before, I'd played with him a ton, and he was a maniac.
Okay.
Just raising the flop with nothing. So I thought that if he had a 10 there, he would have just flatted. I didn't think he'd raise there to get re-raised and not be able to call. So I really thought my 5s were the best hand. And
so you're protecting a small pair and just ran into
top pair, king kicker.
So there's, it's interesting because there's all that metagame that we don't see on TV.
Right. We had a lot of history, Steve and I.
Right. This is the problem with these broadcasts, which is inherent to a broadcast, which is you see the decisive hands. So when I saw the hand, I thought, Antonio's playing against this guy. The image of him is he's an older guy, amateur guy, and so he's just trying to run him off in case he's got 8s or 9s or something like that.
I don't think I had enough money to get him off his hand. if I had
If he had a hand.
3, 4, 5 more million, maybe that would have been my thinking. But in that spot, I actually did think I had the best hand.
I mean, the main event, because of the sheer magnitude that it's grown to these days, you don't get that many opportunities to go that deep.
Thank you for
So not
reminding
to
me
keep,
of that, Diego.
not to
Appreciate
keep,
it.
not to bring the pain, but obviously that's something you think about after.
Absolutely, it hurt. That was the most painful bust out. Well, there's two that really hurt. That one, and then this year at the World Series of Poker Europe. Those are my two most painful bust outs of any tournament.
What was the situation in Europe?
I don't know if you guys heard about this hand. I don't want to tell a bad beat story, but
Is it the final table?
Sorry, what we're
no,
asking-
but it was like right before the money, and I had a monster chip stack, and Dan Shack and I went at it for a monster pot, and the board was 9 jack of diamonds with a rag.
Okay.
I had king 10 of diamonds, and he had 6-3 of diamonds, and he check raised me on the flop. I shipped it for like my whole stack, and he just insta called me.
With his 6 high
Six.
flush.
And I was like, oh, I got to get there, And I saw 6-3 diamonds. I was like, okay. And then I didn't win the pot, and I wanted to cry. I really wanted to cry.
My experience of those situations is when it's like bigger flush draw against smaller flush draw, the smaller flush draw always makes a
It
pair.
seems like
That's,
it, right?
Maybe because it's just so memorable, but it just
Right.
seems
But to
like-
go all the way to Europe, and
Yeah.
get that close to like, I would have been massive chip leader, just kind of like really hurt. It really stung. But the World Series, of course, I cried for 2 days. I mean, I didn't really cry, but I laid in bed for 2 days.
It's almost worse in Europe because
You're stuck in Europe.
right, right.
I mean, 15 hours to get
And you
back
haven't
home.
drive home,
you
right?
havenn gone to be a tourist. You've gone to
Absolutely.
win a
Been there a million
championship,
times.
right?
Yeah.
And this is why I don't want to travel to poker tournaments. At the World Series of Poker, at least I can just go right home and go to sleep.
Oh, I've always
Right.
felt that way. And
Yeah.
now that I never play tournaments, even more strongly. But at least in the World Series, you just go right home and
It's very
do
nice to
something
go
else.
home after you bust.
There you get a whole
Whatever,
think
it's
about
home.
So really, yeah, you would have had a ton of chips. And he didn't do anything with all your chips, did he?
No.
Or not?
I
always-
love Dan, but I mean,
Yeah.
I just, just the way the hand went down, and
Of course.
the way it came down on the river, I just like, I never get mad, I never snap or anything, but I like had to walk away.
I've never seen you snap many
No,
times.
I was pretty tilted.
Well,
Pretty tilted.
The good news is you're running pretty well and playing pretty
Yeah,
well.
if I could
all
go
these
back
deep-
and do the
deep
last year all
runs.
over again, I would do it all day for
Right.
sure.
Do you think that this is my impression that you create this crazy image like you're a wild man, but you actually play very solidly? Does it bother you that?
Can I prove the fifth on that one?
Yeah.
Okay, I prove the fifth.
I was going to say that you're on High Stakes Poker a lot, which is just about my favorite show, and I love watching that. You've been on almost every season, or maybe every season. And I wondered whether you were concerned that is blowing your image, because on High Stakes Poker you really see how people play. They're showing
I play nitty on high
basically
stakes. I'm not
they play
afraid to say it.
basically every hand, and yeah, you do the chip tricks, and you've got a outgoing personality. But then anyone who watches High Stakes Poker sees that you have the nuts every time.
Right.
So now when they play
I'm an
with
earner,
now when they play against you, they realize that guy is very strong, because they show all the hands, they show all the hands you fold and so forth. It's not like when they show on ESPN and you don't really know what.
Right. Well,
what's
also
going
on high stakes poker, it's a different field of play. Like when I'm at a table with Durr and Antonius and Ivy, like I would be just insane to think that I'm going to run over these guys. It's just not going to happen. You know what I mean? So you just play position, you play solid cards, and you get through the day.
And when you have
I'm not there to make money.
And when you have the wealthy amateurs, they're just going to give you the money
Right.
anyway.
So
So you just
it's
sit
all
back and let
situational.
them-
If I'm at a table with a bunch of amateurs and whatever, I can play pretty crazy. I can ship it with air, but against those guys, it really doesn't make much sense because they're a lot better than your average opponent.
Do you find real life people in cash games reacting to things they've learned on TV?
Oh, absolutely. They see how you play on TV, and it also kind of makes them gun for you a little bit, which is okay.
Right, it could be good and
You know?
bad.
Yeah, and my image is, some people think I'm a crazy, loose animal, and some people think I'm a super nit. And I can be both. So
right.
it just kind of depends on the table.
It took me years to think I figured you out, and this is after knowing you for a long time. And I only think I figured you out after I've stopped playing with you regularly, because I watch it on TV and my copious note taking.
I mean, obviously you're an excellent player, and you're going to adjust as necessary so that you're not exploitable and predictable. But even so, watching you, especially on high stakes poker, you'll throw in playing kind of a wacky hand, that if you win with it, people will remember. Antonio had the Jack 3 that hand, but when the money's going in, you're not
right.
You don't have the 3-6 of diamonds
no.
as often.
Right, when the money goes in, take little jabs here and there, but when the big stack goes in, I probably have it.
You may have a draw, but it's going to have the other guy's draw crushed.
Right.
That's going to be a lot of fun, though, playing. I mean, it seems like that's as much fun as poker can be, playing in that high-stakes poker with
I love high
that
stakes
field
poker.
and the whole
It's just
setup.
great.
And that's coming up again soon.
That's the thing.
I'm
We're
excited
going to have a new
about that.
season.
I
just
played the
starting
biggest
up
pot
now.
of my life on this last high stakes poker.
No spoilers.
Oh, they didn't
I
want.
won't tell you.
Yeah.
I know that high stakes poker is very serious about not having spoilers, but you're involved.
Did
in
it sound
some
like I was
interesting,
going to say
right?
that hand?
But
Same
you're
my
involved
first
in,
rodeo.
But in terms of
We could find out.
in
We have
terms
people.
of putting
No.
out a tease, you're involved in some interesting hands.
Right,
I
no,
know.
yeah. Barry and I played a huge pot. I'm not going to tell you the outcome.
Barry Greenstein.
Yeah.
Do you? You're known for talking a lot, and I think that you're comfortable talking, and you'd be probably uncomfortable if you had to remain silent for hours on end.
It's not that I'd be uncomfortable, I'd just be bored.
Right.
It's you have to exist amongst your peers. Why not enjoy the time you're with them?
Do you think part of your poker success is that you're able to talk people into doing what you want them to do?
Yeah, I mean, there have been numerous times where people talk and they give away information about their hand. Absolutely.
I mean, there's specific situations where I see you talk to someone and you're seeking information.
Absolutely.
And it may not be the exact question you've asked. And
Right.
you seem
well,
very
you know,
good at
you know,
that.
when you talk, you just give away information about your hand. I don't
Yeah.
care who you are. And, I talk all the time so that when the, incident occurs, I'm already have this rapport with someone. They're already comfortable talking, hey, what's up? What do you got? And they usually say something. I don't know if there's a hand. If you've ever seen a hand against Daniel, where I had jacks and he had king 10, I started talking to him, and you can literally see the moment where he gives it away, and you can see that I see it.
That's
and
one of
then
the
I
most
call them.
notable instances ever,
Right.
and then
Right.
he happened to hit on
It didn't work out, but whatever.
But
Adam and I
Such
talked
is
on the
life.
phone.
and that's
I remember
against Daniel.
We
That's
watched,
a high level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Right.
watched that hand. I remember we talked on the phone that night. Did you see that? Because it was almost comical where he just couldn't help himself.
He
And
just couldn't help.
finally
Yeah, he just gives it
he
away,
had to give it up.
and he knew it too.
Right.
If I was to find myself in a game with you, I really don't think that I would talk to you during a hand, and that's a compliment because
Thank you, Adam.
I just don't
It's-
talk on principle during a hand against anyone because
I
I'm
mean, you
not
really
good at
shouldn't. You
it.
just
I'm
give
not
away
used to it,
information.
and
Yeah.
it can only be to my detriment.
I mean, they
whereas-
were making fun of me this year for not talking. I was talking, but
You're a talker.
I wasn't talking. I was serious because I didn't want to give anything away, and I was looking for other people to give things away. But
The best are the World Series of Poker broadcasts because there's so many amateurs in the field, so many experienced players, and I watch those, and you and Daniel and Phil Helmuth and others literally just ask players what they have, and people tell them.
It's pretty sick
They
how
either
accurate.
Yeah.
tell them directly or
One way or
so
another.
obviously, and they'll just pause, or you will just pause. But Daniel, Phil, some of the other guys are notable, and they'll just be like, "Could you have a set here? You couldn't really have a set, could you?" And then they just wait, and then finally the other guy's like, "You better get your chip," whatever. They say something one way or the other.
It's
and
crazy
They
how
think
much you
they're
give
being
away by
clever saying
talking.
something, and then it's like, okay, now we know what you have. That year that you went deep, you made the final 3 tables. My impression was a lot of the hands they showed you were talking and getting this information. I just remember that in the final hand, the one where you didn't think that he had the hand he had, that he had the top pair. Did you try to talk to him in that hand? Did he?
Yeah, if I
play it
remember
smart?
correctly, I did speak with him, and he did respond, and maybe that's why I did what I did. So that time it probably backfired.
Because I remember something. The reason I remember is because you took your time and he took his time. I mean, it wasn't that. Sometimes you see these boom boom where all the chips go in, but there was some time
Right, it was a
between
big
the
decision.
actions. Big decision,
So-
and you're down to that point where every hand could be the difference between making the
Final table.
final 9 or going out. So I remember you talking. My recollection was that you were talking to him and he really wasn't responding too much to you. He just kind of got into a little more of a shell, which might have meant something or not based on his previous
Whatever
actions.
he did the right thing.
But it worked
'Cause
out
it
for
worked.
him. And of course, he didn't do anything with your chips either. See,
He
I
made
feel
the
like.
table.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Oh, that was Stephen
Steve
Begliner.
Begliner.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
You know what? Somehow that had totally passed from my mind.
It's okay.
I can
Happens with
see
age.
fives as being the nuts.
Yeah, now I still think they are.
Thanks for joining us on The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. And as expected, Antonio not only is a very accomplished poker player, but very insightful about the world of poker and his own adventures.
Let's bring them back.
So naturally, we're going to bring him back next week on Card Player TV.